The way that this grew is it started with doing a content strategy. And the thing about strategy is that somebody's got to implement this stuff, right? The other 215,000 of this deal was you have to remind the client, why is this important to you? And how are we going to work together to make sure that we achieve your goals? So I did that. We got the deal signed and off we went. There's never a question about price. When you're working with the right target market, pricing is rarely the real objection.
Hey there, Pitches. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Pitched and the last one of 2023. I am your host, Angie Trueblood, a podcast guesting and hosting expert and the founder of the Podwize Group, a concierge podcast interview booking agency. If you are a longtime listener of the podcast, thank you, my friend, for supporting us over the years. And I hope this year has been a magnificent one for you. If you are new, I am so excited to meet you. Thanks for spending some of your time with us, and feel free to enjoy the backlog of episodes that we have for the last 4 years. Now, today's episode is really exciting for me because this is a space that I have thought about delving into from time to time, and that's corporate consulting. So we are chatting with Laura Khalil about landing corporate contracts and how to actually go about doing that, using one that she landed in her previous role as an example. I think you will love it. But before we dig in, it is time for our podcast Love of the Week segment. Now, in this episode's podcast Love of the Week, I thought since it's the last episode of the year, I should give a big shout out to our clients who host podcasts of their own. So I'm actually going to share 5 podcasts, give you a little bit about them in case they might be something that you find helpful. So our first podcast is the Physician Family Financial Advisors podcast, hosted by clients that are joining us in January, Ben Utley and Nate Reinecke. They're certified financial planners specifically serving physicians who are mom and dads. They help them on the podcast and with their services turn their worries about taxes and investments and having extra money into a lifelong feeling of financial security. So if you are a physician or swim in that circle, this would be an excellent podcast for you to check out, the Physician Family Financial Advisors. Next up is Ken Schmidt, who I know you have heard me talk about before. Ken's podcast is Leadership Happens, and he owns a recruiting agency, and the focus of his show is all about crafting your own leadership philosophy and doing this through hearing some of the success stories and mishaps of some of today's great leaders. So this is a story-based podcast, which I love, and I think you should definitely give it a listen. Number 3, Matt Phillips is a current client of ours, and he hosts the Matt Phillips podcast for sales leaders. If you are a sales manager or a sales leader who's looking to make more money, save time, and really become a rock star leader of your own sales team, this is the show for you. And it speaks to my heart as a former sales executive in a previous role. I really love the intentionality that he brings to leading your people and really growing your own leadership, not just moving from being a rock star seller to a leader, knowing that there's a jump in skill set between those two roles. So that's the Matt Phillips podcast for sales leaders. Next up, we have my friend Rachel Cook, who is coming back to the family in January. You have heard Rachel on the podcast, and I'm sure you listen to her show, but definitely give a listen to Promote Yourself to CEO, where Rachel shares candid conversations, solo episodes, and interviews about how to step into the role of CEO of your business and doing that while not neglecting the other parts of your life, which I appreciate. And lastly, we have Shelly Warren, who is the host of Stacking Your Team. Shelly is such a guru in learning how to build a leadership team and learning how to build a team really that allows leaders to step out of some of the day-to-day operations of their business. So if you are a small business owner and you're looking to expand your own leadership capability and maybe even step into the role of building a leadership team, definitely search up Stacking Your Team with Shelly Warren. Okay, those are the podcasts of our current clients. The majority of our clients do not have their own show, but spoiler alert, many of them go on to launch a show of their own. So I think this will be fun to see how this list expands over time. But definitely go give them a listen and see if any of them suit your fancy, my friend. All right. Today, as I mentioned, we are chatting with Laura Khalil, who has consulted for some of the world's largest brands like GE, Intel, and Twitter, like really big brands. Today, she's actually working with consultants by helping them pull back the curtain on what corporate consulting even is and how they can land six-figure contracts. I asked her to be on the show to share an example of her pitching herself for one of these very large corporate contracts. And she delivered, my friend. She's sharing a really great example of a strategy that she uses with her own clients called land and expand, which she'll talk about how she landed a corporate contract and then leveraged it to grow her business within that company. I want you to also pay special attention to when Laura talks about identifying and coaching champions at the companies that you are pitching and how to create support for them as they push for your deal to get approved and fast-tracked. All right, without further ado, here is my chat with Laura Khalil. Laura, I am so excited to have you as a guest here on Pitch. Thank you for being willing to share your story with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So before we get into the nitty gritty of this opportunity, share with our listeners what you were doing in your work life then, because I've already introduced to them what you do now, and this was a little different.
I'm more than happy to. So I spent many years as an independent consultant, meaning that I would find business for myself working with large technology companies. I did marketing consulting, and that included a couple different things. For some clients, I did social media strategy. For other clients, I did content marketing or content strategy and implementation. So it was heavily in sort of the overall content arena that I was consulting for these companies when this opportunity came to me. And it came to me through a referral, which is really not uncommon in the consulting world.
Yeah.
Consulting businesses typically thrive on referrals once you get going. And so this came from a gentleman who I had actually worked with in a previous consulting gig years prior. So he didn't remember me, but he went to the guy that had hired me and said, "Who was that woman?"
Who is that Laura? And how did he not remember you? What in the world?
Thank you, Angie. I
You
don't
are
know,
very
but
welcome.
I sometimes I guess maybe I would like tone it down a little bit in the corporate world. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he it had been a few years. I can't blame him. And so he came to me. The reason that a lot of clients come to us, which is they have a problem. There's something wrong and they need help. And his problem was that his company was creating a whole new design system.
Okay.
And so this would be something that their designers and their developers would use internally for branding, for brand consistency, so that like all the colors look the same, the fonts look the same, the logos look similar. There's that type of stuff going on. And he needed help organizing this content so people could consume it, meaning they could find what they needed to find. But he also needed help getting people to use this system. Because in a small business, it's really easy to say, this is what we're doing, go do it. When you're dealing with a Fortune 500 or multi-million dollar or multi-billion dollar company, getting your cool thing adopted, whatever that may be internally, is not as easy as someone
Right.
just saying, go do it, because you have to negotiate. You have to work with different teams. It's very much like launching a product or service.
Yeah.
You have to get people to come in. So that was the issue he was facing.
Okay. So he was really looking for someone to help him take this initiative and implement it within the company
That's right.
and get the buy-in. Okay.
Absolutely. And eventually it would go outside of the company, but they were going to start internal. So he wanted help with a content strategy to help them organize this brand library they were creating,
Okay.
and then organize it in a way that would make it interesting for people to want to
To
click through,
use.
use it, make
Yeah.
it usable, easy to use, stuff like that.
Okay.
I had done work like this in the past, so I knew, like, yeah, I can do this. And did I know everything? I just want to say to everyone, no, I didn't know everything. You
Yeah.
figure this stuff out. You learn as you go. So I just want people to know that even if you don't always feel ready, or you don't have 100% of the items that they're looking for,
Thank you.
get paid to learn.
Yeah.
Okay? That's how it's done. So
Yeah.
I knew enough to get started. So the way that we began, and now remember, he had worked with me in the past, but not closely. So the way that this grew is it started with just doing a content strategy.
Okay.
That content strategy was around 35,000.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, did you
So,
pitch it? Because it sounds like he came to you, right?
so he came to me. He said, this is the problem we have. I said, let me craft a proposal
Got it.
and we will walk through the proposal. And so this is what his immediate needs are in the proposal. And
Mhm.
then I had added, here's sort of long term what would need to happen. Now, when you're dealing with a larger organization, you may have to go through several layers of approval. So, what we had to do was make sure that he could advocate for the proposal that I was creating. So, I actually created a proposal. I walked him through it and I said, okay, here's what I've heard you say. Let's go through this as my kind of teammate in this,
Mm-hmm.
because he has to be my champion internally.
You know, what's interesting as I hear you walk through this is yes, you were pitching your services to him. And also, you were prepping him, in a sense, to pitch the idea of this internally. So it's like, oh, that's a really interesting dynamic that you had to work through.
Yes. I helped him become a champion for the proposal.
How so? Tell us a little bit about that. Like, what does that look like? Did you give him like objection handlers for what some of his people might like?
I said, what would someone say if they didn't
I'm
like, no,
thinking back to my sales days.
that's funny. So no, what I did is I literally walked him through the proposal, line by line, item by item. He was very detail oriented. He said, I actually want to see more detail here in this part. This is a little bit too vague. Can you make it clear? What he wanted to see in order to get the deal signed is he wanted to see week by week. So the client is literally telling you how to get the deal signed.
Yeah.
So you better just frickin' do it. And so this was, I believe, a 7-week strategy I was going to be working on. I think I'd worked it out to 7 weeks. So I run him through, here's what I think we need to be doing every week. This is the order. Do you have any questions? Is anything on this proposal unclear to you? Is there anything you would add?
Mm-hmm.
When we walk someone through a proposal like that, one, they fully understand it. So they can advocate, they can champion it in that other room you will not be in. And so we continued to work on it together. And then he has a proposal that he has bought into and he's excited, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So now he goes and sells it for me. That's how we got the deal done.
Okay. I have a question about the proposal because I know a lot of the people listening are service providers and are consultants.
Yeah.
Is walking them through the proposal something that you typically recommend? Even if it's, well, you work specifically with people who are selling to corporate. So is that like on a Zoom call? They're doing it in person? Because I think about my own business and I send a proposal. Typically, I know they've already said yes. So we're sending just a proposal, a contract, and an invoice. But I'm thinking for higher level clients, last year around this time, I engaged with a biotech company about potentially pitching some of their clients. And as I'm hearing you walk through this, like there were so many missteps because I had never worked that angle before. And I definitely didn't have a champion. I had someone who was intrigued by what we did, but she for sure did not know enough about it to go back and champion the cause. So I'm interested about that proposal piece.
One way I like to talk about it is like being a ghostbuster, because if anyone listening to this sends out proposals and then gets ghosted,
Yeah.
you got a problem, my friend.
Yeah.
You got a problem. When we do things in this manner, we become ghostbusters because they're bought into the proposal. Now, this all also relies on knowing how to write a really strong proposal.
Fair.
Okay. So, if you're going to walk someone through something that is not a strong proposal, it's still not going to work. You have to understand the keys and elements to great proposal writing.
Yeah. You can't put, what is it, lipstick on that pig?
Exactly. So, that's another part we're not talking about, but that is really, really equally important. So, assuming you understand that, the proposal walkthrough is really critical.
All right. So he was a champion, got the deal signed. And then how did you expand that business to 250K?
Land and expand is one way to grow your consulting business and to grow the size of the deal. When I talk about this, I want to just be very clear that this is not the only way to do things. It's just one way, and it's the way I thought would be fun to talk about today. So we can land with a smaller gig, and then we expand into larger. First of all, why do we do this and how does this happen? Why we do this is because sometimes certain clients are not ready to make a 6 or multi-6 or 7-figure investment in your business. They want to see what you can do. So you're earning trust to do bigger deals at this point. I built out this content strategy. And the thing about strategy is that somebody's got to implement this stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
And no one wants to the way that Laura does.
Or they don't have the internal resources to do it. They've been pulling people, half time off of this team and that team and the other team. And it's sort of a mess. Or, a great way, and this is one way we don't often talk about, but it is one of the great ways that you can get hired, is they've hired someone else to do it who was cheaper. And it didn't work out.
Yeah.
And now they're actually ready to invest because they don't want to screw it up again.
Yeah.
So we built the strategy, and then came phase 2. Well, someone's got to implement it. They have nobody to implement it. They have lots of experience in-house. They just don't have a human being to take this on. So that became the other, I think it was around 215,000 or so of this deal, was then saying, well, if you want help implementing this over the next several months, because you've just spent 35 grand creating it.
Yeah.
Are we going to throw it in a drawer? Like, what was the point? So that then became the expand. Now they've already seen my work ethic. They've seen what I've shown them. They're excited about the strategy. So we do pretty much what we did before, which was walk them through the proposal of how it would work and get the buy-in to get the deal closed. It's not really much different, except this time they're really your buddies because they know you really well. They like you, hopefully, if they've been working with you.
Yeah.
And so in this case, because of the size of the deal, I had to go in front of the CTO of this company and sort of his colleagues and effectively sing for my supper.
So was that an in-person meeting where you
That was in
guys
person,
connected?
but it doesn't really
Okay.
matter. It
Yeah.
really doesn't.
I'm just trying to set the scene for this. Yeah.
Yeah, I went into a boardroom and my champion said, "Laura, are you okay?" Because I looked a little nervous, I think. And I was
Like,
like,
it's a pretty big deal,
"I know
John.
this is kind of a big deal." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I'm okay. I'll be okay." For the CTO, I created a presentation for him, which
Yeah.
we played. I walked him through what we had done. I walked him through what we wanted to do, and I walked him through why this was something that the company was invested in. One of the problems people make in proposal writing is we kind of lose the forest through the trees. You have to remind the client of the vision.
Yeah.
Why is this important to you? Why are you invested in this?
Mm-hmm.
And how are we going to work together to
Yeah.
make sure that we achieve your goals? So I did that. We got the deal signed and off we went.
Did they give any pushback, or was there like a Q&A to where the CTO had questions?
Yes, there were some questions, but nothing like, there's never a question about price. When you're working with companies at that level, and in fact, if you're working with the right target market, pricing is rarely the real objection.
Yeah.
A lot of people think, oh my God, am I too expensive? And I want you to consider for a second, you might actually be too cheap for anyone to
Mhm.
take you seriously or for
Yeah.
your aspirational target market, because we've all had that experience where have you ever gotten something that's really cheap and thought, what's wrong with this?
Yeah, for sure.
So there weren't questions about price. And actually, I'm trying to remember because this was a few years ago. I don't even know that we had the price listed. My client knew what the price was. My champion knew what the
Mhm.
price was. I don't think the CTO cared. I mean, this is like
It's not his
a
money.
huge organization. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just trying to this is peanuts. You got to remember
Yeah.
this is peanuts to a really large company. So this is a high level individual. He doesn't want to get into the weeds. That's why he has staff
Yeah.
to get into the
Yeah.
weeds for him. So no, there was nothing crazy at all.
Okay. And so then you went on, you implemented.
Yep.
Did you end the engagement after that with them? And like, what was other than the monetary income to the company, to you as a consultant,
Mhm.
what was the impact on your business? Because I have to assume they were well networked as well, right?
Yes. So it depends on well, for anyone who's listening to this, the country, the state, or locality that you're in, how long they can hire someone to do this work.
Oh, wow.
In my case, the company had a policy to not keep people on longer than a year.
Like
Consulting
consultants?
contract
Okay.
role. If they were going to do that for their own safeguarding, they would actually turn it into a full-time position. I
Hmm.
was offered the full-time position. I turned it down.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't want to
No,
do
thank
it.
you. I just made $250,000. Yeah.
Not interested. But they did ask for my help with kind of hiring the next individual. And so I didn't do like interviews for them, but I did talk to prospective internal candidates that were interested. And I told them a little bit about the work we were doing. And then I went on my merry way. And, it's funny because Angie, you asked me, well, did this lead to more work? Well, what was really funny is that this probably could have led to more work, but it was also the moment where I really decided I wanted to dedicate my career to helping other consultants do the same thing.
Yeah. So, what about the experience kind of triggered that?
I remember with this client, I worked with a team there and I would, have one-on-ones with different members. And more than once, people would say to me, you're not really like anyone, we've had consult with us before. And I'm like, well, no shit, Sherlock. Like I am off on a planet Mars over here. They're like, you really are more of a coach. Because I was actually coaching the employees on their own lives and their own career growth, as much as I was doing the work. It just came naturally to me. And it really just hit me over the head. I said, well, Laura, you could keep doing this work, or you could keep connecting with people in the ways that really make you feel alive.
Yeah.
You know, when I started consulting, Angie, I didn't have any freaking help.
No.
I made so many mistakes in my business starting out, literally tens of thousands of dollars I lost out on because I didn't know what to charge. I didn't know who to ask. I didn't even know how to ask about budget. I didn't know any of that stuff. I didn't know how to write a proposal. Like,
Yeah.
I screwed up so many times before I stopped screwing up, before I learned the hard way.
Well, I think that's what so many of us do, like, especially if we had a corporate background and then we jumped over to consulting or entrepreneurship. I mean, I look back and there's definitely things that they might not have been total flops, but they definitely created a bigger time gap of me getting where I wanted to be.
Exactly. And I just wanted to be the person I wished I had had.
Yeah.
Because maybe instead of getting $250,000 deals, maybe I would have been getting $1,000,000 deals by that point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, And so something in me at that moment coalesced and just said, it's time for the next thing. Now, I will tell you, there are many, many consulting gigs I've had prior to that moment that led to hundreds of thousands of dollars in new business.
Yeah.
So
For sure.
if you do a good job, clients want to refer you for sure.
Yeah.
They like you. They want to bring you in to do more stuff. But I was just like, yeah, I'm ready for the next act.
Well, I love what you do. I mean, I've been on my own, oh my gosh, 2017. And even before then, I still was kind of running my own gig at home. I see so many women that are so qualified to be consultants. And I feel like sometimes we see the only option of leaving corporate. I mean, I know for me, I did the MLM thing for a little bit successfully, but also it was just like a taste of what I wanted for my entrepreneurial journey. Anyone that's out there helping women to play a bigger role or play a role as big as they want to play
Right.
because they are capable is someone I am a champion of. So I love the work that you do for sure.
Well, thank you.
One thing you said, and it was interesting because we hear so many people in the online space talk about charge your worth. And I just think that that's like so conflated and we're worth more than we could put a price tag on.
Yeah.
But you talked about how price wasn't an issue if you're selling to the right people. And I think I want you, listener, to take that away because I've had that experience this year. The people we are connecting with are the right people. And it's not really a discussion. And it is the most beautiful feeling to not be hemming and hawing over dollars and just
Yes.
to figure out if you're a good fit with that person or that company.
The thing with pricing is I want to offer like 3 axioms for the audience. You're always going to be too cheap for an aspirational target market. So there's a market out there that they're going to look at you and say, oh, the pricing's too low. There's something wrong. You're always going to be the right price for your target market, meaning they may question your price, but they're going to pay it. They're not going to try to discount you. They're not going to try to cheapy whatever you.
Yeah.
But the third one is probably the one most people face, which is that you're always too expensive for the wrong target market. And so if you are in business and you are facing continual, relentless pushback, discount seekers, got to think about it, people, you're working with the wrong target market. It does not mean discount your rate. And by the way, when I talked about land and expand, you never, ever, ever land by discounting your rate. Ever.
Yeah.
We don't discount. We reduce scope, but we do not discount.
Yes.
So sometimes people are just working with the wrong target market. They're just working with a market that can't afford them. And so they think, God, what am I doing wrong? You're not doing anything wrong.
You're just talking to the wrong people.
Yeah, exactly. You're talking to the wrong people. You have to change your circumstances. Now, the other thing I want to say in terms of how do you get paid this kind of money is you, one, have a really clear target market you're going after. You are not serving everyone. Forget about that.
Mm-mm.
And you have a really, really clear list, small list of services you offer that solve problems for people. The bigger the problem, the bigger the potential payday. So the more value you can provide, the bigger the payday. There's a lot, like we could go on and on about like value-based pricing and how to do that. That's one thing people definitely need to consider is a value-based pricing. What's the value of what I'm offering to the client? There are lots of ways to figure that out, but it's not about you. It's not about
Yeah.
you, but I will say if you as the human being have to be able to get the words out of your mouth. I'll use an example of one of my clients. She was considering land and expand. And she said, I don't think I could charge more than $35,000 for what I want to do. And I said to her, listen, if you're working with a larger company, they may actually be willing to pay more because it's solving a bigger problem for them because they're larger problems, larger paydays. So she went into this organization and she gave them the $35,000 price tag. And do you want to know what they said back to her? They said, could you prepare a more robust offering around $100,000? She got the deal. She closed that deal. So sometimes if we have a number stuck in our head around, I can only charge this much, you're literally limiting yourself from what potential opportunities are out there. So you have to, one, be okay with the number could be a lot bigger. And also sometimes people just need to build confidence in saying these numbers. Like I get that for a lot of people saying $250,000 could be like, oh my God, what's she saying? But you'll get there. If you keep trying, you keep growing, you'll get there. You'll feel more comfortable with it.
Awesome. This was so good. Thank you for sharing the story, the perspective, and also you and all of the nuggets and strategies that you shared with our listeners. And I also want to call out the listener who they are a service provider and maybe they are feeling like they are tapped out on what they can earn at the market that they are serving. Please connect with Laura. So tell them how they can connect with you because I really do believe in the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Well, the first thing is, if you like podcasts, because you're listening to this one, head on over to my show. It is called Big Deal Energy. You can go listen to it. You can get lots more tips from me on how to grow your business with bigger B2B deals. And you can also find me over at bravebydesign.net, and you can learn more about what I offer over there. And I just want everyone to know that, like, the horizon, like the opportunities are often much bigger than what you think. If you're feeling burned out, it's typically time to level up, and I'd love to help you.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Okay, friend, what did you think? I love the concept of land and expand, and I know that it applies to a number of different types of pitches. It was even relevant, even though I didn't have a name for it, during our conversation with Sean Fink, when she talked about earning a keynote presentation that ended up landing her a lot more work moving forward. If we're talking about podcast guesting, a great example is how you can land the interview and have that interview go live and you'll see impact from listeners hearing you. But if you really focus on leveraging the relationship that you create with the host, then you're typically able to expand that interview's impact beyond what you might have originally intended, right? So I want to hear from you. Do you have an example of when you have pitched something and then been able to expand your impact? If so, hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm an Angie Trueblood. Send me a connect request and then shoot me a DM explaining your own land and expand so that I can use it on an upcoming podcast. All right, friend, that is all for this episode. Until next time, be well, be visible, and get pitched. And also, if you are celebrating holidays over the next couple of weeks, have a fabulous couple of weeks with friends and family. See you in the new year. Thanks for listening to this episode of Pitched. If you would love to get pitched to be a guest on podcasts, we here at the Podwize Group would love to help you. We offer 2 primary services to support our clients in landing and converting podcast interviews. Whether you want to handle the pitching yourself or you'd like our team to do it all, hop on over to our site, thepodwisegroup.com/services to check out how we can help. If one of them suits your fancy, you can schedule a time to connect with me right there. I am so looking forward to connecting with you.